Hello everyone, welcome to the Web and Mobile Systems course for the semester of winter 2023. My name is Amartya Sen and I will be your instructor for this semester. In this video, I would like to discuss about the different aspects of the syllabus, the key and important things that you should all be aware about, and then talk about the different project guidelines that is involved for this course. So to get into the syllabus, this course has two sections. The first section is a hybrid section, and the second section is a fully online section, which I would also like to call as an asynchronous online section. Okay. The hybrid section basically means that every week of this particular semester, we are going to meet in person one day and one day through synchronous online meetings via the Zoom platform. Okay. And for in-person meetings, we are going to be meeting in the Math and Science Center, room 168, during class hours from 10 a.m. to more or less noon. Okay. And similarly, on Tuesdays, when we will have synchronous online classes through Zoom, that will also take place during the class hours. So please keep a note on that. So the only exception to this meeting time, as I have already mentioned through the announcement, is going to be during the first three class dates, that is today for Thursday, and then the next upcoming weeks, Tuesday and Thursday, till I'm back in town again. So after that, from the week of the MLK holiday, we are going to be following this schedule that is specified in the syllabus. Okay, so that means every Tuesday we're going to have synchronous online classes. And then every Thursday, we are going to have in-person classes from 10 a.m. to noon. Okay. And fully online students, they will be watching the recording of this class, which will be made available to all students, regardless of which section they are enrolled in. So they can watch the videos at their own pace and then complete the deliverables and the assignments that are given during the course of the semester. Okay. However, fully online students are most welcome to join the synchronous online classes that is going to take place every Tuesday. And if they wish, they can also attend the synchronous online classes during the in-person meetings that we will have on Thursday as well. Okay, so if they wish to do so, they don't need to change their enrollment. They are more than welcome to attend those classes as well. And the same goes for the students who are enrolled for hybrid classes as well, that if due to certain issues, whatever it is, that in certain class dates, if you would like to attend the class in an asynchronous fashion, you're more than welcome to do so. But please make sure to, drop me an email, give me a notification so that I'm aware as to why you are missing, so to speak, right? So as far as this class is concerned, of course, we will do a second video wherein I will discuss the course overview with respect to the topic of interest. But to just give you a highlight, this class is more about developing interactive front-end interfaces with respect to web systems and mobile systems, right? So we are going to be learning about the different technologies, the languages, so to speak, that are there, the different libraries that we have, which allows us to make these efficient and effective interactive front-end technologies for both the web platform as well as the mobile platform, or as other people would like to call it, the native platform, so to speak, right? So my office location is in Engineering Center 322 for those who would like to visit me with respect to the office hours. I have not specified any specific open office hours as such, but in order to keep things flexible, just send me an email if you want to meet me either in person or online. Either works for me, and we can fix a time that works for both parties. Okay. As far as the learning outcome goes, we are again going to be, as I discussed in a little bit of high-level overview, about the different aspects of developing front-end interfaces, interactive front-end interfaces. So I'm not going to read all of them out one by one. You can take your time and go over them and get an understanding of what the learning outcomes of this course is. We don't need any kind of study materials for this course, right? Given the nature of this course, it's a programming course. The resources are available in abundance online, right? So in addition to all the resources that I will be sharing through lectures, through the videos, through my notes, right? If you still need additional supplementary support, then you can search the World Wide Web for any of the relevant materials that pertains to the topics that we're covering at that particular point of time, right? So, and as far as software goes, you don't need any high-end machine. You just need to make sure that you have a machine that can run a basic code editor. The code editor that I would recommend very strongly, right, although you don't have to stick with it, is Microsoft Visual Studio. So if you just search for Microsoft Visual Studio download on the web, and I will show this to you when we start working with our first module of the coursework, which is HTML as well, the installation and setup of this particular tool, right? But if you want to, take a few steps ahead and start, setting things up for your environment, then you will need Microsoft Visual Studio. And if you just click this link from your syllabus, it will take you to the download page, and you can just download it from there. And the second thing that we need is Node.js. Okay, so once we cross module 3, which is understanding JavaScript as a programming language, and then how JavaScript can be used to build interactive front-end technologies, we're going to move into this library, this JavaScript library that is known as React for web systems, right? And then later on, we are going to be moving to React Native, which is another library which extends React, right? And can be used to develop cross-platform apps for both the iOS platform as well as the Android platform, right? So for both of them, in order to install the different packages, we need what is known as the Node Package Manager, okay? So the Node Package Manager can be installed separately, but to make things easier for us, especially for those who are coming to learn these technologies for the first time, if you just install this package that is known as Node.js, okay, which basically is a runtime environment that allows you to execute JavaScript outside of the browser engine, right? Okay, so if you install that, the latest version of Node.js, again, if you click on this link, it will take you to the download page itself. If you install that, then it comes with the Node Package Manager that will enable us to install all these different libraries that we actually need to do our programming for the web systems and the mobile systems, right? So these are the two essential, softwares that we specifically need. Other than that, everything else are packages and libraries, right? So as the course progresses, as we cover all those topics, we are going to learn or set up our environment with those different packages and libraries. So we don't have to worry about that right away. But if you just want to set up your environment before we dive into the actual coding and stuff like that, then these are the two things that you need, and you don't need any other books. All right. So as far as evaluations are concerned, you have 3 different categories of tasks, okay? And all of them are individual. There is no group work aspect involved in this particular coursework. So first of all, you have 5 take-home exams, wherein one of the lowest scores will be dropped, okay? So essentially what that translates to is that if you, perform well in the first 4 exams, and that makes your last exam essentially optional, so to speak. Otherwise, it also gives other students an opportunity. If you have not done as well as you expected to do in one of the initial exams, then you get a chance to make up for that towards the end, right? So that's the whole idea of having 5 take-home exams, and then the total points will be based on 4 exams with the lowest scores being dropped. And the whole idea of these exams is to basically reinforce the knowledge, the conceptual and partially some of the implementation knowledge that we will be covering throughout the course across the different modules. So this course, the way I have designed it, consists of 5 different modules, right? And each addressing a particular aspect of developing web systems or mobile systems, right? So you have HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React.js, and then React Native, right? So these are your 5 modules. So after the end of each module, you'll be assigned the exam, right? And this exam is basically will be composed of different questions that generally are asked during interviews that you might apply to in this particular career path, right? So if you want to become a web developer, a web programmer, or a mobile developer, right? So the exams will be designed keeping in mind the type of questions that are asked during those interviews for internships or actual jobs, right, with respect to each of these technologies. Okay, so that's the whole motivation behind these take-home exams. So once the exams are assigned, you will get about 7 days to finish it, and that will be ample time to kind of wrap up your take-home exams, as long as you start working early and not the day before the submission deadline, right? In addition to that, you will have 5 quizzes. Again, the number 5 kind of correlates directly to the number of modules that you have. The quizzes will again be given right after, or assigned right after we finish each module, right? And the nature of the quizzes is to kind of draw your attention to some of the key features that we have covered pertaining to a particular technology, right? Just to make sure that if this is the first time that you're learning, you will be confronted with a lot of new things at a very fast pace, right, so to speak. So you need some kind of some way in which you can remember that, okay, if nothing else, this is what is important. And if you remember the most important things, then your memory will kind of help you to connect with the other extraneous pieces that are there that you have learned in that particular technology. So that's the whole idea of the quizzes. Okay, so the way it is designed is it will be composed of only very short answer type questions pertaining to those key or important concepts for a particular technology, or it could be an MCQ type question, a multiple choice question, right? So you will have no more than 5 questions, right? It could be just 2 questions, but no more than 5, right? Or it could be 3, 4, whatever. And it'll be 10 points per quiz, right? And once you start the quiz, it wouldn't take you more than 15 minutes to complete, sometimes less than that. So, right. So it's more of a in place to jog your memory and to kind of draw your attention to what is important, right? So that's the reason why these quizzes are in place. It will be assigned after we finish as our class or as our course progresses. And there is no set deadline to complete the quizzes, right? As long as you make sure that you complete the quizzes before the end of the semester, before the final grades wrap up, that's fine, right? So there is no like deadline or late penalty associated with the quizzes, as its sole purpose is to help you kind of understand what is important in a particular topic. So the recommendation is always going to be, once you finish, for revision purposes, or just to do a check on yourself as to how much you understood the key and important concepts for a particular topic, it is of course highly recommended that right after we finish, or right after when the quizzes are assigned, you take it within a week or so, right? So just to make sure that you are up to pace and you don't fall behind too much. Okay. Other than that, we have a project, and this is going to be a semester-long project. All right. So right after we talk about the syllabus, we're going to deep dive into the project. So I'm not going to talk too much about it right now, but just to give you an idea, it has 2 phases. The first phase will focus directly on the development of a prototype for web systems, a front-end interface for web systems. And then the second phase, after the midterms or so, will kind of pertain to developing a mobile system front-end interface using React Native specifically. Okay, so we will talk more about it once we get to the project guidelines document right after this. All right, so late submissions, please note one thing is all submissions must be made through Moodle. Please do not email me any submissions. And all your submissions on Moodle needs to be in PDF format. Okay, do not submit any kind of handwritten illustrations or any handwritten code. Do not take pictures of your work using a cell phone and submit that as illustration or your work. If you do that, you will be sent back. You will be given a notification to resubmit your work, and that will be treated as a late assignment. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Just make sure that you do not do that, right? And as far as late submission policies go, if you are late for the first 24 hours after the deadline, you will incur a penalty of 10%. And if you are late over 24 hours but before 48 hours, then you will incur a penalty of 25%. And if you are late past 48 hours of the deadline, then you will not get any credits thereafter. So this date policy essentially applies to your exams and the 2 phases of your project submission. Okay, so keep in mind, of course, there will be some situations that will arise that will be beyond our control, right? There will be emergencies, medical in nature, family events, meets, conference, whatever it is. So what is important is that if you know that you're going to miss the deadline, then you need to communicate that to me as soon as you can, right? If you communicate to me like 15 minutes before the deadline, or 6 hours before the deadline, or just a day before the deadline, that, hey, I cannot do it because I did not start my work, and now I was going to start my work, but some emergency came up and I won't be able to finish, then I cannot help you at that point of time, right? So if you need an exemption, and if you are very sure, you can see your schedule and you're very sure that you're going to miss the deadline, then communicate that to me. And depending on the scenario, we can work something out, probably with respect to an exemption that does not incur late penalty and stuff like that. Any excuses that has to do with, your computer crashed, you lost your work and stuff like that, that will not count as a verifiable excuse for exemption from late penalty. Okay, so please make sure that you start early with your work. Okay, the way I have designed these assignments, if you put even an hour, 2 hours of your time from the day the work gets assigned, you will finish comfortably a day or 2 before the deadline, right? So start early, make sure that you do not stress yourself out just a day before the deadlines. Okay, save your work. Okay, have multiple copies of your backup. Don't have your local computer be the only source of backup for your work, so that if something happens to that, your entire work is gone, right? So save frequently and save in multiple places. Okay, so that you don't lose your work. All right, so overall, 5 take-home exams with the lowest score dropped, 120 points. You will have 2 phases of your project report submission, and at the end of the project, you will also have a presentation and a demo to give, which will be pre-recorded in nature, just like I'm doing right now. So that will amount to about 150 points, and 5 quizzes that will be 50 points with 10 points for each quiz, right? In addition to that, some of your take-home exams, I will also give some extra credit questions for you to kind of, pull your scores up if you ever need it towards the end. So if you attempt those extra credit questions, you will get those extra credit points, and those extra credit points will be added to your final scores at the end of the semester, right? So keep an eye out for those extra credit questions. It won't be there in all the exams. It will be there in a few of them. Okay. So the total points for the scores is essentially 320, and the letter grade conversion that we are following is basically the standard for Oakland University. There is no change to that. So we are going to be strictly following this scale. You can see for yourself, and you can keep a track where you are going to stand at every phase of this particular course. So there's no confusion as to what your final letter grades are going to be. Please keep in mind that there will be no grade boosts given or grayscale grades that will be given at the end of the semester. Whatever your final percentage point will be, the corresponding letter grade will be assigned to you at the end. Okay, so even if you are 0.01% away from the next letter grade, it doesn't matter. Okay, so please do not email me for grade boosts. So just make sure you work for it, and whatever you end up getting at the end, that is what your final letter grade is going to be. All right. So the rest of the syllabus, you can read. It's the basic documents, okay, some policy and stuff like that. So make sure you go over it if you haven't seen it before, and be aware of it. All right. So towards the end of the syllabus document, we also have a tentative course schedule, which kind of lists, based on the different weeks of this particular winter semester, what are the topics that we are going to cover, and then when the assignments will be assigned and when they will be due. Okay, so a note on the assigned date of these assignments as well as the due date. So the role of the tentative schedule of the syllabus is to basically give you an idea of the time window when these assignments will be assigned and it will be due. Okay, these are not the final date, so to speak. anytime that you would like to know what the final dates are, please refer to Moodle. So whenever I open an assignment on Moodle, that will give you the assigned date as well as the due date, right? So that is your final reference, not the syllabus or the tentative schedule of the syllabus, right? The reason why I say this is because sometimes, depending on the pace of the class, right? Like if a topic is more difficult, then I would have to spend a little bit more time than anticipated for a particular topic, right? So if that happens, then we might be delayed probably by a week or so. That's the average from my experience, that we fall behind of the tentative schedule, right? If that happens, then these dates will also move forward, mostly, not backward, by probably a week. So depending on the pace of the class, these dates will also move. But what the schedule gives you, the tentative course schedule, is an idea of when more or less these assignments will be given to you and when they will be due. Okay, so you can go over that. Please make sure you go over that, and you can mark your calendars if you would like to, as to when these assignments are going to happen, and then when they are going to be due. Okay, so other than that, in the next video, of course, I'm going to be talking in depth about the different topics of interest that we have specified here. So we are not going to dive into that right now. So let's move on to the next point here, which is a discussion specifically about the projects, what is expected, and then what you are supposed to submit. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the project will be carried out in 2 phases. Okay, specifically, phase 1 will be about developing a web system, okay, an interactive web system. So it will be assigned, as we can see here from the tentative schedule, somewhere around the end of week of January. Okay, and this is the time when we have covered mostly about HTML, CSS, and maybe we have started a little bit about the basics of JavaScript as a programming language. Okay, not its utilization for front-end technology. So you start off your project, but by this time, keep thinking about the topics. Of course, I will give you some idea of what the probable topics that you can choose from as well. And then that project will be due sometime around the end of February. Okay, so from the date that it is assigned, from the date till it's due, you will probably get about a month's time to finish the assignment. Okay, and then right after that, the second project will be assigned around the mid of March. Okay, and it will be due towards the last day of the semester, not towards, but essentially it will be due on the last day of the semester. In addition to the report of phase 2, which will be about developing mobile system front ends, you will have to also do a demo of both your phase 1 as well as your phase 2, and then submit that along with your phase 2 report, right? So these are the 3 essentially the deliverables that are associated with your project: the phase 1 report, the phase 2 report, and basically a demo, a pre-recorded demo of both phase 1 and phase 2 along with a PowerPoint presentation. So in phase 1, when you are going to design the web system and the front-end technologies for web systems, right? This document that I am talking about, which is the project report presentation guidelines, this is also present in Moodle as well, right? So you can check this document out. So here, I have given you some idea about the different types of web systems or websites or front-end websites that you can develop, right? Remember, this course has no aspect of back-end development, right? So there is no server-side development, there is no server-side scripting, there is no database aspects involved either. So all that is required for you to is develop interactive front ends, and then wherever there could have been a back-end interaction, right? If you're familiar with that, some of you are, but for those who are new to this, you can just keep that as a placeholder, right? You don't have to do anything, you just give an alert message and stuff like that. So we will discuss about that more as the course progresses, right? So you can develop any of these category of websites that you would like to, right? If you're stuck, if you're lost, just send me an email, discuss it with me. We can have a one-on-one discussion on Zoom, or you can drop by my office hours, talk to me after class when on the days we are in person and stuff like that. And I can help you kind of formulate your idea, make it a little bit more concrete. So although the assignment is going to be assigned towards the end of January, I would like you all to go over this document, and that's the reason why I'm discussing this at the very first day of the class, is because I want you all to be aware of what is expected and start thinking about it as to like what can you do, right? So you have the options of social media sites, you have the options of e-commerce sites similar to Walmart or Amazon, right? You can develop something like Facebook or Instagram if you would like to, just the front end side of it. You can develop blog sites, newspaper sites, magazines. These are some things that we have all encountered in our daily life. So we have an understanding and feel of what these front ends look like, right? So your job is to kind of create a prototype and then make it in your own vision, right? If you want to clone it, you can clone it. There's no problem in that. But if you want to take it a step further, apply yourself, right? Then you have to give it some shape and vision from your own creativity, right? So that is something that will help you practice the things that you have done, right? Or you can create portfolio websites for your own self, right? And you can include that in your CV for your future internship applications, future job applications, and things like that in order to kind of highlight your showcases, right? Skill sets. Showcase your skill sets, right? And for phase 2, it's all about mobile development, right? So you can choose to transform any of your web system interfaces into the native platform or native app, right? Or you can choose any of the apps that we are familiar with, right? So you can choose education apps like Duolingo, or you can use weather channel apps. You can develop lifestyle apps like Uber and Tinder, not Uber, because I'm going to be showing you a full demo of Uber. So please don't do that. Try something else, all right? Social media apps, you can again do FB or Instagram for the native platform, right? You can develop a calculator, you can develop something like a Google Suite, Netflix or Hulu, anything that you would wish to, right? But if you want to be a little bit ambitious about what you want to try and develop, then you need to start early, right? You cannot think of developing something on the scale of cloning the Netflix or the Hulu app, or even Duolingo or Tinder, right? And then start 2 weeks before the deadline if you're new to it, right? If you have some prior experiences, or even if you're intermediate in the technologies that we are talking about, then of course you can start a little bit late, but that is up to your confidence level, right? And it's subjective in nature. But if you're new to this, for people who are for the first time learning about React Native, which is the technology that you must use for developing phase 2, okay? You cannot use any native app specific technologies like Swift or Kotlin. Even if you have prior experiences with that, this class is about learning React Native, right? So when you implement your project, it is a mandatory requirement that you use React Native specifically and not Java and Kotlin for Android development, or Swift and Objective-C for iOS development, right? So that is not allowed. So please keep that in mind for those who have previous experiences with this particular development skill set, okay? So again, everything needs to be electronic, and your code base needs to be hosted on GitHub, all right? And when you're going to be preparing your report, the sections and the content that needs to be there is basically outlined in this document as well. So you will have a title page where you'll have all the basic information, okay, along with the link of your GitHub repositories. And if you have hosted your website on a particular hosting platform, for example, let's say Heroku or GitHub Pages, if you have a static website in particular, and then if you're using Expo, then you can give those links. Some of these words may not make much sense right now, but that is absolutely fine. You don't need to worry about it, right? Essentially, what we're saying is all the links that you have for your project must be present on the first page, which is the title page, along with your name, okay, and the title of your project itself. Then have a table of contents, followed by a problem statement, where in a concise fashion, you will explain what is your app doing, right? What is it about, and what is the practicality behind that particular app, right? Thereafter, you will talk about the technicalities. That is, you will start off with your system requirements, talk about what your application does, what it does not do, so that you can stop any kind of unwarranted questions, because the possibilities of what an application can do can be more than what you have envisioned, right? So whenever you develop a report, a technical report as such, you need to clarify to your audiences as to what your app does not do, So essentially, that's what the system requirements is all about, to tell your audiences what it does and what it does not do, so that the audience do not wander outside the boundaries of your vision and start questioning as to why this is not there. Right? So that's the whole purpose of this particular subsection. After that, it is all about the design of your application. So you're going to be specifying or outlining a control flow diagram. Essentially, what a control flow diagram does is that it's a visualization of how your application is going to work. And the way your application works is by implementing different functionalities that we call as functional requirements, right? So for example, if you take a very simplistic example in order to understand this idea of functional requirements, let's say you're designing something like a calculator app, a simple arithmetic calculator. Now, if I pose this question to you, that what functionalities does your app support? Okay, maybe you're developing it for the native platform, which is mobile, or you're developing it for the web system, whatever that might be, right? So if I say, okay, you tell me that you develop a simple calculator app, and I tell you what are its functionalities. So you should pause the video right now and ask yourself this question: what is your answer? Right? So essentially, you might say that it supports 4 specific functionalities, the 4 basic arithmetic operations of addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication. In addition to that, it also has the functionality of an equal to operator, where if the operator is clicked or touched by the user, then it will give the results of the arithmetic operations before. It has a backspace functionality. If the user clicks that, then whatever is on the screen, it will remove. And then it has an output display functionality, right, where it shows what the user is typing on the screen and it updates it dynamically as the user does its interaction, right? So all of these different aspects, they are all functionalities that is being dispensed by the application that you have developed, right? So when you develop an application, the first question that you need to ask yourself is what kind of functions will be supported by this application? That is, what kind of functionalities are you going to provide to the user, right? So once you develop these functionalities, in order to kind of illustrate the interdependencies or the relationships between these different functionalities, we use what is known as the conceptual design, right? So that is the schematic diagram which kind of visualizes all these functionalities and the interconnectedness between them, right? How do they operate? So you can have a start button, that would be one functionality. The start button shows a menu section, that is another functionality. From the menu section, you will have, let's say, k different options, and then k different options will have k different functionalities. So if you visualize this, this is basically a control flow diagram, that if the user interacts with this functionality, this happens. Next. So you can all represent that in a visual format. So that is what a conceptual design essentially means. So in the 5th section, essentially, you will have to specify your conceptual design, which will be represented as a control flow diagram. And then you will have to specify what are your functional requirements, as what kind of functionalities will be supported by your application. Okay. Then just a quick explicit list of the technologies that you have used. So for example, if you're developing phase 1, the requirements is you must minimum use HTML, CSS, and JS, and the React.js libraries optional, right? If you are using mobile systems, then you will have to use React Native. Okay. And since React Native also has some aspects of the React.js library, then of course you have to be using React to a certain degree. Okay. Remember, React Native is not a subset of React.js, so to speak. It's a different library altogether that is built on top of the idea of React.js, right? So, but there are certain React aspects that can also be utilized within the React Native development, right? So when you're doing phase 2 for mobile systems, you will mandatorily have to use React Native. And as such, there will be some aspects of React Native, the React.js library that will also kind of sneak into your development, so to speak, right? And of course, if you're using React Native, JavaScript will always be there. That's basically the canvas which supports everything else, right? So that's the language, okay? And after that, you will have to have a feature scope section, okay? And the 2 things that you have to explain is what was your initial expectations regarding the development, right? What ideas did you have? What did you want to initially build, right? and then explain how much of it you were able to achieve. And you can explain in your words what was the challenges, what was the bottlenecks that kind of prevented you from achieving your initial expectations. All right. And then the second thing that you would want to outline, or you need to kind of specify in this particular section, is that what further improvements can you do on these apps, right? And make sure that that is not just a regurgitation of the aspects that you were not able to achieve, but think it from this way, that if you were able to achieve your initial expectation, how else can you improve this app, right? What else can you do based on what you have learned that will improve this app, either making it more user-friendly, either making it more effective in terms of performance, in terms of loading and stuff like that. So think along those lines, and that will help you during your job interviews as well, when they throw you questions such as, okay, how can you improve this further and stuff like that, right? So that is what essentially the future scope section is going to be all about, right? And then you need to write down any kind of challenges that you faced when you were doing this project, both for phase 1 and phase 2. And then finally, you need to wrap it up by the section of estimate of effort, where you will essentially just write down that in doing phase 1 and phase 2, how many hours per week and how many weeks were invested in doing this project, right? So that gives an idea to me when I'm evaluating as to like how much effort was put into it. So even if it is not a complete work, then I can estimate the effort and then I can grade accordingly. So that is the important factor there. And that is the reason why you need to make sure that you put the estimate of effort properly, okay? And honestly, of course, don't just make up a number and give it there. Write what you did, right? If you did 1 hour a week per week for 4 weeks, then write that. You don't have to, increase the number and put it there. If you say you did 24 hours a week per week for 4 weeks, that is not going to make me grade you more. Okay, so just write what you did, and that's all you have to be mindful of. You don't have to worry about any kind of mysterious messages as to what this means, right? Okay, so as far as the grading goes, we need to see the GitHub link. That is very important. So for those who don't know GitHub, when we work on HTML and we make a little bit of progress, I will show you the basics of how to work with GitHub and Git. Okay, there are two different things. Those who are already familiar, make sure that you upload all your work for your project. And then sometimes your exams will also ask for some of the GitHub links, because you have to write certain small working prototype of implementation, right? So you will have to upload all your work and you have to include the GitHub link. So for the total of 50 points for each phase, that is, each phase is of 50 points, and then the final demo is of 50 points again, right? So the GitHub link is worth 10 points itself, so that we can download the work on our PC, we can check for any errors and stuff like that. What have you done? And those kind of things. The title page and the table of contents, 2 points, problem statement, system requirements. Each of these sections has its own point. So just make sure that you're familiar with all these points, right? So if you're going to miss a section, you know how much points you're going to lose. Okay, that's as straightforward as I can make it for you. All right. So as far as the presentation goes, and this is towards the very end, right? Okay. So once you're done with both phase 1 and phase 2, you will have to do a no more than 15 minutes presentation that will demo both of your prototypes, what you have developed for phase 1 and what you have developed for phase 2. You need to give us a walkthrough. And when you give us a walkthrough, you're going to talk about what your application scenario and problem statement is. You're going to talk a little bit about what are your functional requirements and your conceptual design. Tell us quickly what tools, technologies you have used to implement the project, and then move on to the demo. And when you demo it, please walk us through your project setup and your code base, right? So we can see that, you have actually done the stuff that you have done. And then go over to the interface and then give us a walkthrough of the interface itself. So please remember this format. This is how you will be graded for your demo, okay? Depending on whether these aspects are present and how well these aspects have been conveyed to us, all right? So 15 minutes is just a reference. It doesn't mean that you have to be exactly 15 minutes. We don't want things to go over 15 minutes, but if you're able to convey all this information in a succinct fashion in, let's say, 7 minutes or 10 minutes, that is fine. So the length of the video duration does not equate to how much grade you get again, right? It is the content that is required and how efficiently you can convey that content to us. So if you're done in 5 minutes, you're done in 5 minutes. But try not to go over 15 minutes. If it takes 17 minutes, 19 minutes, it's okay, right? You're not going to lose any points because of that. So this is just a reference. Don't get too anxious about it, right? Try to meet it if you can. If not, if you go over a few minutes or if you're less by a few minutes, it's okay. What matters more is for you to ask yourself whether these contents that are required for grading purposes has been conveyed properly. That is what is more important. Okay, so there are some frequently asked questions as well from my past experiences and stuff like that with these kind of projects. So please go with them. If you still have any additional questions, you can always drop me an email or reach out to me, talk to me one-on-one, and I can clarify the doubts to the best of my ability. So what I want you all to do right now, as far as the project is concerned, is think about the topic. That is more important, right? So you have about 2 or 3 weeks roughly time since it's formally assigned, right? The phase 1 is formally assigned. So go over some of these links that I have given, right? Look at them, right? Ask yourself, what is it that you always wanted to try but didn't have an opportunity to try, right? So whatever that topic is, see how much of it can you reasonably achieve in a duration of, let's say, 4 weeks, give or take, right? And keep in mind of your other schedules as well, your other commitments that you have in terms of your coursework, your life, your personal life, and stuff like that, your work, if you're working, and those kind of things. And decide on topics so that when formally this is assigned, you can start your development, okay? This is especially for those who are new to these technologies, completely new. Those who have some previous ideas, you can start beginning the development if you would like before the formal assignment date itself, right? The same goes for phase 2. Right now, things are a little bit more relaxed. Then when you will start phase 2, it will be like you will have a lot of exams, midterms might be going on at that time, so on and so forth. Finals will show up, knock on the door really quick. So you wouldn't have this peace of mind, this relaxed mind that you hopefully have now, comparatively speaking. Of course, it is subjective in nature to say, to think about what you want to do and develop a vision of what needs to be implemented, right? This will save you a lot of time when you actually undertake this particular assignment and start implementing it, all right? So that is there for project, and I hope I have covered most of the basic stuff. If there is anything missing, if there are any questions in your mind, again, please feel free to email me, talk to me in person once we start after the MLK day, right? Or we can have a meeting on Zoom or in my office, whatever it is that you prefer, okay? In addition to that, there is also a third document that I have uploaded, which is basically instructor expectations and some other frequently asked questions, right? It's general in nature. So please go over them. It is mostly some of the stuff that we discussed in this particular video, but just go over it, skim through it. And again, if you have any questions, you can let me know, and I can try to clarify whatever your questions are, right? So that is there. So the last thing before I wrap this video up is that if you go to Moodle, okay, everything is divided in sections for easy access and stuff like that. So if you look at here, right after the course guideline documents, where you have all these 3 files that I just showed you, is a pre-semester survey, okay? And this survey basically is for me to get an understanding of the course participants as to where they stand with respect to the understanding of the technologies that we intend to cover in this course, right? So please take a moment. It will take no more than 10 minutes to finish this survey. So once you finish this survey, that will help me decide how much emphasis I need to give to each of the 5 different learning modules. It's basically the 5 different technologies that we will cover in this class. And then where I can move faster and where I need to slow down and stuff like that. Okay, So please take a moment, finish this survey. This will close on Jan 20th. So you have probably about, I don't know, give or take 15 to 16 more days, right? So please give your responses as soon as you can. It will be better, and I would appreciate that. Okay, so I'll wrap up this video here for today, and then I will see you all again in another video where I will discuss about all the topics that we're going to discuss and why are those topics important, what they can help you achieve, and those kind of things, right? So thank you very much, and I will see you all again in the next video.